Good afternoon, everyone. I will call this meeting of the California Strategic Growth Council to order. With that, Matt, could you please read today's share?
Thank you, Chair. Begin the roll call with Director Sam Asefa.
Here.
Vice Chair Frank Cardenas.
Here.
Deputy Secretary Virginia Jameson.
Here.
Acting Deputy Director Hune.
Here.
Secretary Tamika Moss.
Present.
Deputy Secretary Darwin Musavi.
Here.
Chancellor Juan Sanchez Munoz.
Present.
Secretary Kim Johnson.
Present.
Public Member Nicole Capretz.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Could you read the public comments, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone joining us today, whether in person, online, or by phone through the Zoom webinar platform, or where the meeting is being live streamed on SGC's YouTube channel and Cal EPA's live webcast. I'm here to provide some information to help guide us all through the process for this hybrid meeting, which we have designed with the intention of maximizing access by members of the public. For those joining the webinar online via Zoom or by phone, please note that your microphone is automatically muted when you join. In order to minimize the risk of background noise, you will not be able to unmute yourself. For those joining online via Zoom, please note that the webinar platform does not enable video for attendees, so we will not be able to see you. If you need technical assistance during the meeting or have a question about the meeting process, there are a few ways to contact us. If you're using the online Zoom webinar, the best way is using the Q&A function. Several members of the SGC team are monitoring the Zoom Q&A function to facilitate public access to the meeting and may remove disrupting or threatening content. If you have joined by phone and you have access to email, please email sgc.info@sgc.ca.gov. If you do not have access to email, you may text or call 916-634-3359. If you plan to make in-person public comment, you must fill out a comment card provided at the table near the back of the room. Please fill out the public comment card to indicate your name and which item you would like to comment. Please bring your comment card to the table, the side of the room, where there's signage indicating that that is where they're collecting public comment cards. When the chair opens the public comment period for your item, we'll read the names of those that have submitted a form for that item. Please line up by the podium and I will call your name in the order in which you submitted your card. When it's your turn to speak, I will call your name to the podium. If you plan to make remote public comment, you must be joining the meeting via Zoom, either through your computer or by phone. To make a public comment, visit sgc.ca.gov/meetings and complete the public comment form linked there. You'll need to complete separate forms for each item on which you wish to speak. You may complete a form at any time prior to the beginning of the public comment period. When the chair opens the public comment period for your item, we will read the names of everyone who has submitted a form for that item. When you hear your name in that list, please raise your hand. To do this online in the Zoom webinar, click Raise Hand under the Participants menu. You can find that at the bottom of your screen. To raise your hand by phone, you would press *9. When it's your turn to speak, a member of our team will unmute your microphone. If you're online, you'll see a window pop up alerting you that the host is unmuting you. You'll need to click the option to approve unmute, and after that, you may begin your comment. If you're on the phone, you'll hear a recorded message alerting you that your line is unmuted. Please begin your comment after you hear the recorded message. If you're unable to complete the online form but would like to make a public comment, please email sgc.info@sgc.ca.gov. Each speaker will have a maximum of 2 minutes to make their remarks. A timer will be screen shared. Please monitor that timer and wrap up your remarks accordingly. Whether you are online or on the phone, you will be notified when your time is up. After that, we will mute your microphone. You do not need to take any additional actions once we mute your microphone. Thank you all for your participation, and I hand it back to the chair.
Thanks, Matt. We will move along and start with item 3, which is the approval of the December 17, 2024 meeting minutes. I just want to remind colleagues that members need not have attended these meetings to vote on the minutes adaptation, but you may abstain. We'll have an opportunity for council discussion, then public comments. With that, Matt, so move. Do we have any public comments? I think we
We have no public comments on the minutes.
No, any council discussion? No. Approval moved by Chancellor Munoz.
We have a motion. We would need a second.
Second.
Thank you. I will take a roll call vote. Director Acefa,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cardenas,
Yes.
Deputy Secretary Jameson,
Yes.
Acting Deputy Director Hune,
Yes.
Secretary Moss,
Abstain.
Deputy Secretary Musavi,
Yes.
Chancellor Munoz, Secretary Johnson,
Yes.
Public Member Capretz.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. It is my pleasure to actually, for the first time, introduce our new executive director. I was not here at the last meeting, your first meeting as an executive director, and I want to take this opportunity to thank Vice Chair for his filling in for me last time. I heard it was a wonderful meeting. Sorry to have missed it. So with that, I'll call Erin Curtis, our new SGC's executive director, for item 4, which is the executive director's report. Following her presentation, we'll have the opportunity for council discussion, then public comments. So with that, I will ask Erin to come up.
Thank you, Chair Sefa. It's nice to be here. I have a few reports to provide for you all. I wanted to start with introductions of some new staff at the Strategic Growth Council. So I am obviously new here as well, but we have 3 new folks and a promotion to provide information to you about. We have Justine Massey, who has come on board as the Special Projects Analyst / Senior Advisor. And Justine's right there waving at you. Justine's a California licensed attorney, and her work in the past has centered on the human right to water in California. And she advocated alongside impacted communities for just policies related to groundwater, land use, drought response, and climate resilience. So we're very happy to have Justine joining our team. We also have a new Chief Deputy Executive Director, Thomas Cameron, who is in the back of the room also. Thomas has come on board in the last month or so, and he actually started in state service back in 2006. He has been most recently at the California Department of Aging and was on loan over at the governor's office for about 6 months working on the GoServe transition. So we're very excited to have Thomas join our leadership team. We also have a new staff counsel, Sarah Bauer, who is in the back of the room as well, who has joined, and she's joined the LCI legal team and will be working on SGC issues. And I'm really happy to announce that Jessica Lopez has been promoted to our AHSC program manager. Jessica's been with us for about 3.5 years within that program, and she just took over that role. We're really excited to bring someone from within and be able to keep that expertise in-house for certain. So I'm very excited to be working with all of these folks and everyone at SGC. It's been a really great onboarding period for me. So we can move on. I wanted to give you all some updates. We have been out and about in the community all over California in the last couple of months, so I wanted to give you some highlights. Most recently, and it was really my pleasure to be a part of the Dos Rios Light Rail Station groundbreaking last week. This is part of Transformative Climate Communities program here in Sacramento. And as well, the AHSC program has provided funding for this project as well. And as a part of that large project along the Highway 160 corridor here in Sacramento, we broke ground with SAC RT on a new light rail station for the Dos Rios Twin Rivers area in Sacramento. It's a neighborhood that's really cut off from transit. It's an island, and we've been funding and assisting with a new affordable housing there, and now we're going to be able to connect them to transit opportunities, the residents there, which is what they asked for, and give them an opportunity to get to jobs, get to school, visit family, et cetera. So it was really honored to be there. Next slide. Thank you. We have also celebrated other things in the last couple of months that I wanted to make sure you're aware of. Jessica Lopez, for example, who is a part of our AHSC program, new program manager, spoke at the Corazon del Valle ribbon cutting down in LA. This was, when did we do this? February 8th. And this is an AHSC Round 5 awardee from 2018. The total award was approximately $23 million. And the description, I'll just give you a brief description of the project as a reminder. It's transforming a vacant Los Angeles County-owned site into a mixed-use development with 180 units of housing, 176 of which are affordable, including support services for formerly homeless individuals and families. And the project will also include a neighborhood clinic, office space, a community room, courtyard, and community space. And it includes robust active transportation improvements, of which this groundbreaking or ribbon cutting was a part. So we were very excited to see that move forward. Next slide. Next slides. Thanks. Oh, we mixed one. There we go. We also had the Agricultural Land Equity Task Force, which hosted a public meeting in Coachella on February 12th and 13th. And that's a 13-member task force, as you'll recall. It meets quarterly around the state, and it is developing a report of recommendations for the governor and the legislature around agricultural land access and tenure in California, focused on food production and traditional tribal ag uses. The task force is developing a report that will go to the legislature and the governor. It's due next January, and so they'll be meeting quarterly to develop that report. Next slide. So this is just some additional highlights, opportunities that we had to be in the community and celebrate milestones related to our projects. The Watts Rising Transformative Climate Communities Project had a groundbreaking on January 15th for their Century Gateway Park. The SGC staff also attended several in-person events as part of the Boost Imperial Valley that included an EV charger installation ribbon cutting that was back on January 22nd, and a Thriving Salton Sea Roundtable on February 3rd. And staff is busy developing an inventory of state agency activities in the Imperial Valley to identify potential new partners to involve in our coordination efforts there. We had another ribbon cutting event, actually, on January 10th in Petaluma to celebrate the opening of the North Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit Train Station, another AHSC project there. And the Connecting Communities team and LCI staff are planning a series of day-long regional convenings this year as a continuation of our commitments made at the 2023 and 2024 Catalyst conferences. So the convenings are going to kick off on Tuesday, March 25th. We'll be in San Diego. March 26th, we will be in the Los Angeles region. Those are the two that we have planned so far. And we'll keep you apprised as we schedule further convenings. The AHSC staff also presented at the California Department of Housing and Community Development Tribal Finance Workshop and 2 active transportation webinars hosted by the Active Transportation Resource Center and CalBike. Finally, I want to direct your attention to one other item for your information. At the last council meeting in December, council members requested additional information in response to comments we received from affordable housing developers who are seeking developer fee alignment between the approved AHSC Round 8 guidelines and the recent Tax Credit and Allocation Committee developer fee limits. We have provided additional information in response to the request in the executive director's report. And we have also been engaging with our partners at HCD on this issue as well. So that concludes my report, and I will hand it back to Matt.
If members of the public would like to comment on this item, please submit a public comment card at the side table. To make virtual public comment, please visit sgc.ca.gov/meetings and complete the public comment form. I'll hand it back to the chair.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. And it's great to always see ribbon cutting because a lot of the work that we do in funding projects, we don't see them for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And Dos Rios, I think that was one of great projects. discussed here for quite some time, and it's really great to see that. Just opening it up to council questions, comments. Secretary Moss.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, Aaron. It's a pleasure to see you and meet you, and also just to hear all the incredible work that the staff are doing. Just, reinforces my appreciation for all that you all do. I wanted to just appreciate how much work the staff has done to address some of the comments that were raised at our last council meeting with regard to the developer fees. You all have, and we will be discussing this certainly later on the agenda, but the round 9 guidelines, I think, really do reflect a lot of the input that we have received as a council, that you all have received as staff. So I'm really excited that that those elements have been incorporated. And that really does include aligning our developer fees under the ASIC program with other state programs. So really appreciative of that. And it also just creates more alignment and transparency in our processes, which I think the public and certainly our developer partners were looking for. I guess I would like to ask, as we continue to assess this issue, I would love for the council to consider a round 8 adjustment for our developer fee as well. I really do think that as we think about how the developer partnerships allow for our ASIC projects to really move forward, I really want to be thoughtful as a council about how we can synthesize this information and make sure that the council is making an informed decision about how to incorporate some of these changes in the round 8 guidelines. And so between now and our April meeting, I would love for the staff to agendize this for further discussion and possible action on the round 8 guidelines with respect to the developer fees. So just offering that to my council colleagues and to staff. I really want to make sure that the entire ecosystem, it takes a lot to pull these projects off. And I want to make sure that we are being helpful in our processes, certainly in round 9, but also in round 8.
Thank you, Secretary Moss. I think you point some really important changes that needs to happen. I just have a question to staff. Would round 8 be retroactively? And what would that mean? It might be good to understand, at least for me, that. Okay.
Is the,
Anyone else?
was that question retroactive and
Please
what-
go ahead. Sure.
I didn't catch the last part of your,
So when you retroactively change the guidelines for round 8,
so if let's go forward, it'll impact the awards that we made in August. So developers moving into the standard agreements would have that option to increase their developer fee.
okay, so that's still live. Okay. Questions, comments? Yep. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would not be able to return to Pasadena tonight if I did not, on behalf of untold number of folks, many of whom no longer live in our area, if I did not offer my profound thanks and appreciation to our governor and to the members of his team and administration, many of whom are up here right now. Sam, Executive Director Curtis, Secretary Moss, your leadership, Secretary Moss, in helping families have some hope that they can return to their homes. Many longstanding intergenerational homesteads in Altadena is not lost on many of us in the area. And your words and your leadership and your commitments will be long remembered and honored where I come from. I also just wanted to offer a note of thanks. Wade Crowfoot was remarkably helpful behind the scenes in a whole lot of ways. That's kind of the way Wade works, I think. And Wade, wherever you are, man, I just want to offer my profound thanks. Everything that you did to put us, myself included, in touch with various people, not the least of which are some amazing professionals in the governor's OES has been absolutely tremendous. So as we begin to pivot from relief to rebuild and recovery, knowing that in the Altadena, Pasadena area, that we have this kind of leadership and this kind of commitment from Governor Newsom's team means absolutely everything to us. So I don't know how else to say it, but thank you from the bottoms of our hearts.
Thank you, Vice Chair Cardenas, for bringing that up. It has been a remarkable transformation since the fire. Not only, I think, the response from the government. I think just yesterday the governor announced a record debris cleanup, a record in the country in terms of the amount of debris that was cleaned up. But that's just a testament to not only leadership really responding, but actually the communities of Altadena and Pasadena and really coming together. We, SGC staff, myself, as Secretary Omashakin, spent a couple of days there soon after, because the governor asked us that we have to be there and experience it. It is one thing to hear stories from you who are very close to it and there, or people who are impacted by it. But when you stand on the ashes of the burnt down buildings and actually hear it from a person whose house was burned, it is a completely different level in terms of the impact. You know, it's easy to see the infrastructure that is impacted, but the human and community that is being devastated, which is sort of a lasting scar, and but the significant hope in the work that you have been doing since there, and people like you, is what gives us hope. And I think the California spirit that we actually come together in times of disaster. So there's a lot of work to be done, but there are lots of great hopeful signs. So thanks for commenting on that. Any other comments on the executive director's report? This meeting is going to be pretty quick, and we have a light agenda as well. So, make sure that.
Yes, we have 4 virtual and 1 in-person public comment on this item. We'll take in-person public comment first. I'll begin the public comment period by reading the name of the individual signed up to comment on this item in person, which is Marina Espinosa. Marina, if you could approach the podium, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. My name is Marina Espinoza, and I'm the Policy Director for the California Housing Consortium. I wanted to take a minute to comment on the guidelines for the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program. I know that the proposed Round 9 guidelines are going to be considered as part of the consent calendar here shortly, and we greatly appreciate staff's work to update the limits on developer fees for those guidelines to align them, better align them with those the fees set by TCAC and CIDLAC. And while the Round 8 guidelines are not on the agenda, I appreciate the discussion here today on those guidelines. And I wanted to note that they are outdated, and we strongly urge the council to consider aligning those limits with the Round 9 guidelines limits. And we are happy to engage in further discussions with the council and council staff regarding this critical issue. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
That concludes in-person public comment. We will move to virtual public commenters. Our first virtual public commenter is JT Harichmak.
Hi, good afternoon. This is JT Harichmak. I'm the Policy Director for the Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California. We represent affordable housing developers across the San Francisco Bay Area. I wanted to echo Ms. Espinoza's comments that she just made in person. We really appreciate the discussion and the attention on ways to best support our members who are developing in the ASIC program in round 8. I just wanted to add that there is still time to make this change retroactively. Our members have not closed on these deals that we're discussing, and this would be a welcome change for them. This is a change also that would require no additional funding from the ASIC program. Our members can pay for this through other ways. This is merely lifting a limit. If we can be of any assistance to the SGC staff as they evaluate this, we are here as a resource, and we want to thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. We'll move to Elizabeth Kawada. Elizabeth, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. I'm Elizabeth Kawada, Director of Real Estate with Mercy Housing. I just want to echo my colleagues who just spoke and thank you for your support and change to the developer fee guidelines proposed in round 9 and encourage the continued conversations for round 8. Mercy Housing's a grateful recipient of a round 8 ASIC award, and its change would be very much welcome in advance of our June closing. But thank you, and we look forward to April.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Our next virtual public commenter is Ann Silverberg. Ann, are you with us?
Yes, hello, I'm here. Thank you very much, members of the council. My name is Ann Silverberg, and I'm the CEO for Northern California and Northwest Affordable at Related. And I'd like to start by thanking you for the opportunity to make a comment today, but also to thank you for the executive director's report and the discussion today about the requested technical amendment to round 8. There's so much work that's gone into round 9. We're very much appreciative of that as well. And we and many of our colleagues view this opportunity to make the fee limits consistent with ASIC and other program that we use for affordable housing, such as tax credits and tax-exempt bonds, a great opportunity. As noted by one of the speakers earlier, I will just add that this does not mean new or additional funding or support from ASIC. It's just alignment of the fee limits. That said, making these limits consistent across the board would be greatly appreciated by the development community. It's what helps us keep the lights on, so to speak, and allows us to continue doing our community-based work and advance these very important projects through closings and our closing deadlines. So as noted by others, we remain available to provide additional information or answer any questions that you might have and be helpful in any ways you consider this request. And we too look forward to April. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Our last virtual public comment on this item is Tiffen Abarca. Tiffen, are you with us?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Tiffen Abarca. I'm Director of External Affairs at Link Housing. We're a statewide nonprofit developer of multifamily affordable housing and a previous recipient of AHSC funding, including in round 8. I'm submitting comment on behalf of Link Housing to express our support for the policy change to align the developer fee regulations in the HSC round 9 program and the program overall to be consistent with the limits allowed by other state funding programs, namely TCAC and SIDLAC. And I also want to echo again our colleagues supporting the call to amend the HSSC round 8 guidelines to be consistent with those limits so that we can ensure that developer fees are in line with the actual costs of developing affordable housing developments. Thank you for listening and for your time.
That concludes public comment on the executive director's report.
Great, thanks, Matt. We move to item 5, which is the consent calendar. The consent calendar is for routine and non-controversial business. So I'll now pass it back to Erin.
Thank you, Chair Safa. So on today's agenda on consent is the round 9 ASIC program guidelines for approval. SGC staff has been developing these guidelines in collaboration with our partners, community organizations and tribes, and the public for several months. And we have made some adjustments this round as a result, as we've heard. I will hand it over to SGC's Deputy Director of Community Investments and Planning, Marcy, to provide a brief highlight of the guidelines.
Thank you, Erin. Good afternoon, Council and folks online and in the room. Again, my name is Amara Susana Sid, and I get to represent affordable housing and sustainable communities today with the round 9 guidelines up for approval on consent. After many months of coordination across HCD, our partners at CARB, the public, our technical assistance providers, many advocates, the program team was able to get our draft out in November for public comment. It closed in December. We held statewide workshops. We held in-person workshops and virtual workshops, as well as dedicated listening sessions online, dedicated sessions for tribal members as office hours. And we received nearly 40 public comment letters that included over 400 unique specific points to this program. The AHSC teams worked diligently to get us here today with these guidelines. These guidelines reflect many updates that we've been mulling over for the last couple of months. These guidelines reflect updates to eligible costs and projects, along with important items and scoring changes. Some of those items I'll highlight today very briefly, since there is quite a bit. In the guidelines, we see a clarification on requirements for the sustainable transportation improvements. For example, on-demand transit must have a designated pickup within the project area. Carpool, van pool, car share must reside at the affordable housing site. The team is combining the sustainable transportation improvements and the transit-related amenities costs into one category, so kind of streamlining our processes and in the view of our program guidelines, updating our definition for agricultural land, additional points for pro-housing designation, added AB 680 workforce standards, which apply to all projects unless they have a qualifying project exemption. We have this program aligning more with multifamily housing program in terms of formatting, what's required for the applicants, and how we're looking at the projects in general. We have also added additional points for priority populations. This includes 3 points for disadvantaged communities per CalEnviro screen, as well as 2 points for low-income communities and low-income communities within a half mile of disadvantaged communities. A potential applicant could receive all 5 points, as well as tribal applicants could receive all 5 points. In our effort to continue ongoing engagement with tribes and increasing.
Amar, may I interrupt you? Would you just define what would be the difference between the disadvantaged community and the low income? Is it?
There is a difference.
Well, I suspect that there is, but I'd like for you to.
So for California Climate Investments, we utilize disadvantaged communities criteria and low-income community criteria that are set within CalEnviro screen mapping, so 4.0. So when we look at the maps, there are areas or census tract areas that are designated the most harmed or disadvantaged, so the top scoring communities. When communities are not in that designation, there is an option for low-income communities to also come up on this mapping system. So communities that don't meet that designation are low-income communities. And then there's low-income communities within the half-mile buffer of a disadvantaged community. So kind of taking that out, there's multiple ways to get to a disadvantaged community. It's socioeconomic factors, different hazards, different environmental conditions that get you to a DAC. Some communities may not meet the DAC criteria and then also have a low-income community criteria. So if that community is predominantly low income, they're coming up on the map as low income. This particular option, since we're on it, was an ability to think about how do we increase access to communities that may be historically harmed, but also may not come up as a DAC per CalEnviro screen, since that is part of this program's criteria. So that is an option to think about what other communities that may identify themselves as a DAC come up with some opportunities for points here.
Yeah, I raised the question just for my own edification, the product of a disadvantaged low-income community. Most people just don't intuitively construct those as mutually exclusive. I think I think the nuances of what you're saying are helpful. I think if you grew up poor, you felt there was some disadvantages to that circumstance. So, so it's just interesting. And I'm not surprised it's captured somewhere in statute or description, but I just, I thought it'd be helpful for you to maybe just provide a little bit more nuanced and context to the possibility to be, slightly impoverished, right? But not completely disadvantaged and have some disadvantaged characteristics, as well as both of them being together and the buffer within proximity.
Thank you for that clarifying point. And just to add,
Well, just to be, you provided the clarification.
Well, clarifying
I
question.
provided the ambiguity and thank you.
We do call most of these priority populations, so AB 1550 was improved and implemented to also include the low-income communities and low-income communities within a half mile. So before it was just disadvantaged communities, and this provided a little bit more opportunities, and that was per a lot of community engagement for that legislation to happen. So back to my talking points, I noted that a project could receive all 5 points, and also tribes could be eligible for all 5 points. As we, again, are looking at all opportunities to increase access to tribal applicants, both within SGC and across our programs and across the DIAS agencies. The Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program is constantly finding ways to engage for this round, and in partnership with HCD. There's the removal of limited sovereign immunity waiver. We have ongoing technical assistance opportunities for tribes, so dedicated slots for tribal applicants. Our tribal set-aside was also updated. So initially, this program has held the $50 million set-aside up to one project. For AHSC, we're removing that one project language. So there could be multiple projects that come in from tribes that could get us to that $50 million amount. So they would be prioritized in this program. We also reduce the amount of a project ask from tribes, where the minimum requirement is $10 million. That is reduced down to $1 million. That was a suggestion to, again, increase access and reduce barriers for entry. And then we also revise some of the language for experience for tribes. There's a lot of information in these updates. We have a summary of changes that's nearly 6 pages long. In those summary of changes, they kind of walk you through some of the key spaces. Those are highlighted. So the most important spaces to look at are the highlighted marks. I would highly encourage folks to engage in that summary of key changes to get you a little bit more familiar with this program and some of those updates. And that is it for my update on this consent item.
Great. That was short and sweet. I would open it up for council questions, comments on the reports on the consent agenda. Oh, Secretary Johnson.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Chair, and thank you so much for the overview. I want to build on Councilmember Cardenas' points on the recognition of what we just experienced, and the hot's getting hotter, as the governor says, and the wet's getting wetter, et cetera, and how that contributes to catastrophic wildfires. So I'm really glad to see the increased need to incentivize this building and retrofitting of homes and communities. It's in real time. The experience that we've had. I think I've spent most of 2025 in Los Angeles this year, and really just coming to genuinely appreciate not only the phenomenal community of Altadena, but also want to recognize the work that we have to do and seeing the spirit of that. And so as it's reflected in these guidelines in terms of the very focused efforts to look how we rebuild withstanding climate in the future, just really want to highlight that and lift that up in this next set of guidelines. I also just want to appreciate that conversation related to priority populations and just emphasize and underscore the importance of that inclusion, and also with respect to tribal sovereignty, really looking at advancing tribal health and equity in the space. And then finally, I also want to just appreciate the broader efforts related to supportive services, right? This is supporting people to have a better chance to stay housed, health and medical needs to be met, residents' ability to be members of their communities and actively participate. It's really the integration and coordination that we're striving for. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it really does mean the difference between life and death and thriving in communities. So just really appreciate the work of the staff and the teams and the input we've received to get to this set of guidelines. So thank you.
Anyone else? Secretary Moss.
I just wanted to build on my appreciation to Secretary Johnson, Secretary Garcia, many of us who have been trading flights down to Los Angeles. Thank you for your appreciation, but it has been sort of an incredible honor to be in community with folks advancing these kinds of programs in real time. And I just appreciate your leadership, Secretary, but also the governor's leadership and staff's leadership, our ability to actually be responsive to emergencies like this while also moving ASIC round 9 forward. We have to, walk and chew gum all at the same time. And I appreciate the professionalism and intention of the changes that you all have made, particularly the tribal engagement. I just want to give a shout out for when we went through round 8, we did not have any successful tribal applications that really made it through to the end. And you all are really responding to that by improving not just the sort of guidelines, but the engagement. The fact that you've had targeted engagement and TA with tribal leadership to really support them through the ASIC process, I think is going to be tremendously helpful in making sure that we have a much more diverse set of applications. So just wanted to call that out and appreciate staff and the public and everyone's participation in these changes. I think they're going to just continue to make the ASIC program that much better. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I'll just echo Secretary Moss's comment. What's really agile and remarkable about this structure is we're constantly building and improving how we do what we do. It's kind of a place where we pilot new ideas, we learn from it, we listen, we change, and kudos to staff for that. And Secretary Johnson's comment as well, some of this reflects to addressing real world challenges that we see in front of us. When we were in LA with SGC and LCI, the Land Use and Climate Innovation team, one of the things we did was we spent a whole day with our recipients, nonprofit organizations that receive SGC funding, to hear from them the impact of the fire in the funding and their deliverables and the timeline and what challenges they're facing. Staff has collected a number of comments and feedback that we have to consider to address that, the challenge that the fire has created on their programs, on their timing, and their funding. So that's what I appreciate this organization, SGC, constantly listen. It's a feedback loop, and that's how you get to better policy, better outcome, and better results. So thank you, staff, for that. No more comments from council members. We will now move to public comments.
Thank you. We have one virtual public commenter on this item. We could proceed with the timer. Clancy Taylor. Clancy, are you with us? Clancy, if you could raise your hand in the Zoom, we can proceed with your public comment.
Hi, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You may begin your public comment.
Right. Hi, Council. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You may begin your comment.
I speak to
Coalition for Rural Housing.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak and provide continuous feedback on the Round 9 guidelines and the ASIC process. So as a TA provider and continuing advocate for California's rural, tribal, and farmer communities, we just want to provide the following additional comments pertaining to Round 9. So we support SGC allowing rural areas planned transit as qualifying transit and strongly support this change. Secondly, we strongly support the removed requirement for limited waiver of sovereign immunity. To further support and strengthen tribal components of ASIC, we support additional funding, flexibility, and understanding of tribal sovereignty and cultural practices. True equity means meeting these communities where they are and working towards the shared vision of California together. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to our continued collaboration to ensure that ASIC serves all Californians equitably. So thank you again, and thank you for all your work with ASIC.
That concludes public comment on the consent calendar.
Great, thanks. Is there a motion and a second to approve the staff's recommendation on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Secretary Moss, Secretary Johnson, second. We have a roll call.
Proceed with a roll call vote. Chair Acefa,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cardenas,
Yes.
Deputy Secretary Jameson,
Yes.
Acting Deputy Director Hune,
Yes.
Secretary Moss,
Yes.
Deputy Secretary Musavi,
Yes.
Chancellor Munoz,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Yes.
Public Member Capretz.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Great. Moving to the last item, we will now take comments for matters that are not on the agenda. This is not a forum for dialogue with the council members. Questions posed by the public during this item cannot be substantially responded to. Any required follow-up will be followed up by the SGC Executive Director and connections relevant to staff. With that, Matt,
We have
start public comments.
We have no public comment on matters not on the agenda.
Wow, this has been the fastest agenda, I think, in 3 years that I have been here. And so with that, unless there's anything else from council members? Going once? We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Very